Hello, BookTube. I got a little mail, and I thought I'd share it with you. Starting with two periodicals, the same periodical. I got two issues of the TLS, the Times Literary Supplement, the June 26th issue and the July 3rd issue. Sometimes this happens, I just get two at the same time. With the June 26th issue, I went right to the letters page to see if there were any ongoing brouhahas that I could keep you apprised of, since we look at the letters page when I get the TLS. And there is, a writer wrote in a while ago and mentioned that was called out for calling Isaiah Berlin a fraudulent scholar. And the writer of the piece, David Bentley Hart, had to write in and defend himself, and his defense makes you hate him. So but it's the bulk of the letters page. There were two other things. I'm sure that someone will write in about Isaiah Berlin defending him. I'm sure that this will continue for a bit, but there were two other things that I wanted to bring up. And one is also a controversy, something that I mentioned in the letters page last time, I think, that we talked about the TLS. Someone had mentioned in that letters column that, let's see here, Michael Lapointe wrote a review of Redhead by the Side of the Road and mischaracterized a character as black who is in fact white. And a reader wrote in and wanted to know, why is that? Why did you do that? And I winced at the time when I read you that letter, because that is the last thing on earth that a reviewer wants to see, just caught dead misunderstanding something like that. And needless to say, the correct response to being caught like that is silence. Needless to say. The correct response is to say nothing at all. You were caught, you made a mistake, that's that. You'll learn better. The correct response in the paper is silence. Go to your editor, of course, and apologize. But you don't say anything in the public forum. That's only going to make you look bad. And I guess Michael Lapointe did not get that memo, because he writes a defense of himself, and you are going to love it. It is genuine genius. Of a horrible, horrible, weak kind, but still. He writes, several readers have contacted me about my mischaracterizing of the protagonist in Ann Tyler's novel Redhead by the Side of the Road as black. Several readers contacted you. Didn't have anything to do with the fact that you were called out in the letters page of the foremost literary journal in the world. No, it's just readers happened to bring it to your attention. Okay, all right, fine. As Linda Daly says, there is no evidence in the text to back it up. In an effort to understand how I made this error, I reread the relevant sections of the novel. The scant physical description is just that he had jet black hair and blue eyes. I suppose that bluest eye ought to have signified to me that the character was white, or at least not black. It's a second sign of trouble. First, he's trying to pretend that it was word on the street that alerted him to this mistake, and not a letter in the letters page of the TLS. And second, changing blue-eyed into the bluest eye. It's a little bit on the snide side, you know already. Like the writer David Bentley Hart, like the persona of him that comes across in this Isaiah Berlin letter, you start to sense that you don't like this person. But anyway, but I failed to register the hint. Because of the city of Baltimore, where the novel is set, is majority black, 62.8% according to the U.S. Census Bureau, versus 31.8% white. Looked it up, did you? Oh man, you can just see, unintentionally on his part, I assume, you can just see him Googling. Oh, that is not a good image. I simply assumed that the character conformed to the majority. Although he didn't strike me as persuasively drawn modern black character, that wasn't enough to correct the assumption, because, as I wrote in my review, none of the characters struck me as persuasively modern. This is problem spot number, I think it's 3 or 4. I've lost count by now. He's trying to shift blame to the novel. He's trying to say, well, the novel was so poorly done that anybody would have made this mistake, after having that bluest eye comment, and after, you know, downplaying the significance of being called out in the highest profile venue in the land, and after that horrible, horrible visual image of him furtively checking the statistics. You know, he wanted the statistics for Baltimore to come out the other way. So, but anyway, let's see here. I regret the error. There you go. That line, I regret the error, should have been the sum total of this letter. If he was going to be ill-advised enough to write a letter at all, that should have been the whole thing. But it wasn't. And he goes on, and this is the brilliant part. This is amazing. At the same time, however, I would ask why evidence must be produced in order to substantiate a character as black, while the relative absence of evidence should cause us to default to a mental picture of him as white, even in a majority black context. Isn't that beautiful? So, in what was her name? Linda Daly? Linda Daly's original letter, it wasn't her intent, I'm sure, but her original letter had a slight hint of maybe just a whiff of an insinuation of racism. That you know that Baltimore is mostly black, and so you assume this character is black without paying attention to the details that might tell you otherwise. And you say it in your review. An error. I regret the error. Okay, fine. And maybe Michael LaPointe read that and maybe was a little bit affronted by that. And instead of simply staying silent, because he was just caught out. That's all. Reviewers make mistakes. It was just an error. I regret the error. That's the most you can say. But instead of doing that, what does he do in that final paragraph? He tries to end his letter, his response, by saying, oh, maybe you're all the racist, not me. Incredible. Incredible. I hope that he gets roundly pasted for it in the next letters column. But I haven't checked the next issue. I have the next issue right here. I haven't checked to see if that happens. But there's another item on this page that I wanted to show you, because another thing, in addition to long-running grievances and things like that, the letters page, especially the TLS, which runs its letters page in the old-fashioned way, as really a forum of ideas, a forum of readers just talking to each other, they often will also do a kind of running thing. JC in the column NB in the back also does this, a kind of running subject where readers will write in to sort of contribute to a question that has come up. And this one is from Paul Clements in Belfast, writes, it was intriguing to read from the archive on June 19th, a review of by Jan Morris of 2 books about Tibet from October of 1956. In the previous week's issue, in the brief June 12th issue, your paper carried a review by Brian Morton of Morris's new diary collection, Thinking Again, separated by 64 years from her archive review. Is this literary longevity a record for the TLS? You know that's going to cause some TLS busybody to write in with, oh no, actually, if memory serves, when they've been up all night researching it online. They'll start off by saying, if memory serves, as if everyone's supposed to know this, like the bus schedule. I'd be willing to bet that will come up in the next letters column or soon. And that, so, well, actually, let's check and see if Michael LaPointe's hair-raising attempt to defend himself comes up in this. Or it could be that someone's just going to take their time writing back. No, it does not. All right, so we shall see. We shall see. I just got these, so I haven't looked through them at all, except I glanced at the contributors and the list for both issues just to make sure that I wasn't in for any unpleasant surprises, and I'm not. It's a whole bunch of names that I really like, so I'll be reading them, and I will give you, but I had to go to the letters column to see what was going on. I noticed those 2 things. That is, in case you're wondering, those of you out there who may be authors, Michael LaPointe's letter is a textbook on what not to do. Don't shift burdens, don't weasel, don't condescend, the bluest eye, and especially don't try to woke jujitsu your readers. Maybe you're all the racist, not me. Don't try to do any of that. I regret the error. If you are absolutely compelled to write a letter, that's the most that it should say. But that was just the mail. In terms of in the mailbox mail, there are also packages, book packages. 3 of them, and 2 of them are boxes. Let's look at this. This first one here is from Yale University Press. It's a finished copy. Comes out in mid-July, which is right upon us. Mid-July is right upon us. This is by Molly Pucci, and it is Security Empire, the Secret Police in Communist Eastern Europe. Oh my. Never knew who in the room. Might have a contact. Never knew. Investigating the history of early secret police forces in Poland, Czechoslovakia, and East Germany in the aftermath of the Second World War, Molly Pucci delves into the ways their origins diverged from the original Soviet model based on differing interpretations of communism and local histories. Pucci also illuminates the differences between veteran agents who fought in foreign wars and younger, more radical agents who combated enemies of communism in the Stalinist terror of Eastern Europe. Oh my. And the author is an assistant professor of 20th century European history at Trinity College in Dublin. Didn't know anything about this, don't think I've heard about it coming, but it's right around the corner, and it's a subject of interest, so I will read it tonight. As usual, my mail hauls tend to be TBRs as well. It's fine by me. And this next one is from Book Depository. The package says Book Depository. I don't recall ordering anything from Book Depository anytime recently. Since the Brattle Bookshop here in Boston and the other thrift shops have opened back up again in the wake of our successful handling of the first wave of the pandemic, I haven't needed to shop for books online. I found the urge went right out the window as soon as I had access to random, and also something that I mentioned yesterday. Quite a few of you have been extremely generous by sending me ebooks. As long as the ebook is in EPUB format or sometimes PDF, it works like a charm for me. And the minute I made that known a couple of weeks ago, several of you have been sending me quite a few ebooks, new and old, and that is so wonderful. That is such a perfect illustration of the generosity of this little community. And that also has drastically decreased the need to go and buy printed books online. So I don't think this is me. I think this is one of you. And that would be bad. The reason I'm squinting is because that would be bad, because Steve has already reimposed his ban on sending me books. So this would be one of you breaking the rules. So let's see what we have here. Well, it's from Book Depository, because because you've got your wine voucher. I don't know what that is. What have we got here? Oh no. Oh, one of you. Oh, I swear. I do declare. Okay, I made a threat, so this is probably my fault. I mentioned the other day, I mentioned that I found a copy of one volume in Nigel Hamilton's trilogy on FDR at war, FDR as Commander-in-Chief of the Allied Forces in World War II. And I mentioned that I loved the trilogy and that I had one volume, the final volume, and now I had the other volume, the first volume, and now I only needed the second volume to complete the trilogy. And I think I sternly commanded that you go to your charity bookshops or whatever and find me a copy. That is not the same thing as going on Book Depository and having one sent to me, but here it is. And the book purists among you are going to say, well, that won't work at all because this is the UK edition. Not the American edition. It's not going to look the same as the other two. You can't possibly put those together. What are you thinking? I don't know that it will bother me that much. This is from Bite Back Publishing, and it's got American reviews on it, but I don't know that it'll have mine. Oh no, it does. Son of a gun. Yeah, this has my review of the third volume in the blurbs, in the American blurbs. Fantastic. Well, all right, I did threaten, but still, let's underscore the fact that don't send me a book. I now have access to all the books I could possibly want again. No reason for you to send me books, especially for you to go online and buy one for me and have it sent to me. That's just crazy. Thank you very much, whoever you were. I don't know if is it going to tell me, Bean? Is it going to tell me who it was? No, it's not. It tells me what Book Depository vendor sent it, but it doesn't tell me who. I wonder if maybe there's a note on the invoice. No, I don't see. I don't know that I have a way to tell who actually sent this, and I'm very appreciative. But let's call a halt to it, okay? I have all the books I could possibly want, and a million means to get more. So, and then we have this huge thing, big box from Penguin Random House. Don't know what that is. Could be a huge book. Could be many books. Let's take a look here. We're not having much in the way of book destroying mania from the Bean because it's a little warm in this room, and she just can't even, as the kids say, if it's a little warm. So, well, this is a box of books. What have we got here? Okay, we have a novel, David Class, Out of Time. Are these going to have anything in them? No, but that's what matter. I'm going to tell you all about them. How nice that Penguin Random House has sent me. They must know. Some of the people, I email publicists all the time, and I have been liberal in my whiny complaints about how I'm not getting books in the mail anymore. Maybe somebody took pity on me with a care package. So what have we got here? The only thing I won't know is release dates, but that's all right. I can find them out. For months, the FBI has been on the hunt for a terrorist who seems invincible. Somehow, the bomber, known only as Green Man, has avoided leaving a single clue. This is no ordinary villain. Each attack is carefully planned to destroy a target that threatens the environment. Green Man insists that drastic actions of violence are necessary to draw the world's attention to the climate change emergency. Probably true. Not terrorism, but probably will take the drowning of an island full of people. Or a summer or a winter of mega weather events that can't be ascribed to anything else. And with each one, the protest movement that supports him grows larger. Tom Smith is a young computer programmer with the FBI, trying to escape his father's domineering shadow. An expert in pattern recognition, Tom believes he's caught something everyone else has missed. But should he act? What if Green Man and the movement he inspires is really the world's best hope? Oh my, oh, I really like that. I really like that. So this young guy, this young analyst has figured out maybe a pattern that could be used to find the Green Man, but should he do it? Or does he agree with the Green Man? That is awesome. And there is our author, David Class. All right, great. We're off to a fine start. What is the next one here? The next, oh, somebody took pity on me. How wonderful. I don't know who I'm gonna send an email to, but I'll fire off a bunch of emails. Oh, fantastic. All right, this is by Robert Weintraub. This is The Divine Ms. Marble, A Life of Tennis, Fame, and Mystery. Nice big biography. Let's see here. Who was Alice Marble? In her public life, she was the biggest tennis star of the pre-war era, a household name like Joe DiMaggio or Joe Louis. She was famous for overcoming serious illness to win the biggest tournaments, including Wimbledon. She was also a fashion designer and a trendsetter, a contributor to a pioneering new comic called Wonder Woman, and friend to the biggest names in Hollywood and society like Carole Lombard and Clark Gable, William Randolph Hearst and Marion Davies, and members of families named Bloomingdale and DuPont. She helped integrate tennis with her support of Althea Gibson, and even coached two young women who became stars in their own rights, Billie Jean King and Sally Ride. Yet her private life provoked constant speculation while she was alive, and her own memoirs added layers of mystery and legend upon the stories. According to Alice, she married a man who was killed in the skies over Europe during World War II. But who was the man she loved, and had he even really existed? She was widely known for her patriotism during World War II. Had she really nearly given her life for her country as a spy, shot during a wild car chase fleeing foreign espionage agents? To write The Divine Ms. Marble, best-selling author Robert Weintraub traveled the country to uncover her fascinating story, and the more he learned about her, the more her mysteries and contradictions deepened. Alice was held in sway by a domineering, highly successful coach with whom she had a volatile relationship, yet she was a powerful woman who knew her worth, demanding equal pay to men decades earlier than other female athletes. For the first time, we come closer than ever before to the truths of this unforgettable life, and it's a story even more extraordinary than everything we already knew about the divine Alice Marble. Look at that. There she is. Oh, man. Okay. And Robert Weintraub has written about sports for the New York Times, Slate, ESPN, The Guardian, Deadspin, and many more. He is the author of 4 books, including the New York Times bestseller No Better Friend. And he lives in Decatur, Georgia, the lovely town of Decatur, Georgia. But what are those other books? Because he's really... Oh, okay. All right. I was going to say he's really familiar to me. That sounds really familiar. His book, No Better Friend, is the one that's trumpeted on the dust jacket. But he also wrote The Victory Season and a book called The House That Ruth Built, which I reviewed. So I will try to remember to try and find that review and post it down below. All right, so I have a history reviewing this guy, at least a little. All right, what's next here? Okay, the next one is a novel, Jen Waite, Survival Instincts. Let's see here. 14 years before The Cabin, 20-something Anne meets the man of her dreams right out of college, but after they get married, Anne notices that he begins to act differently. That certainly happened with me and my marriages to Deb. Anne notices that Ethan, that must be the husband, is suddenly moody and volatile, and Anne is hesitant to realize that her husband is a completely different person from the man she thought she knew. And that is set 14 years before The Cabin. So The Cabin is going to be a linchpin here. Then we have a week before The Cabin, and we learn Anne and her 12-year-old daughter Thea are safely living in Vermont. And they're not safe from bears. Anne is a successful therapist. Thea has friends at her new school, and they receive endless love, support, and baked goods from Anne's sweet mom, Rose. When Thea takes to brooding and shows classic signs of teen angst, a trip for the three women to the White Mountains of New Hampshire seems like the perfect chance to bond as a family. And then we had 14 years before The Cabin, and then we had a week before The Cabin, and now we have The Cabin. A man follows them and drags them at gunpoint to an abandoned cabin in the woods, turning their peaceful weekend away into a fight for survival, far from anyone who might be able to help them. Sounds like any weekend in Vermont. As the women struggle to find out who the man is and what he wants from them, it becomes increasingly clear that they won't all get out of the cabin alive. Oh man, all right, so a thriller. Fantastic, all right. And then what is this last one? The last one in this extremely generous box. Oh no. Oh no. Oh goodness gracious. Okay. All right, well. Okay. I am in the process of not looking a gift horse in the mouth. I'm going to do my best to be diplomatic. This is A Beautifully Foolish Endeavor by Hank Green. This is his sequel to An Absolutely Remarkable Thing. And it has blurbs on the back from John Scalzi, Cory Doctorow, the AP, and Harper's Bazaar. It does not have a blurb from me because it was atrocious. Let's be diplomatic here. There's only one book in the box. Let's see what we have here. The Carls disappeared the same way they appeared, in an instant. While the robots were on Earth, they're called the robots. Oh, no, never mind. I'm not going to start. If I start picking, I won't retain my composure, for which I'm well known. While the robots were on Earth, they caused confusion and destruction with only their presence. Part of the maelstrom was the sudden viral fame and untimely death of April May, a young woman who stumbled into Carl's path, giving them their name, becoming their advocate, and putting herself in the middle of an avalanche of conspiracy theories. Months later, April's friends are trying to find their footing in a post-Carl world. Andy has picked up April's mantle of fame, speaking at conferences and online. Maya, ravaged by grief, begins to follow a string of mysteries that she is convinced will lead her to April. And Miranda is contemplating defying her friend's advice and pursuing a new scientific operation, one that might have repercussions beyond anyone's comprehension. Just as it's starting to seem like the gang may never learn the real story behind the events that changed their lives forever, a series of clues arrives. Mysterious books that seem to predict the future and control the actions of their readers, all of which suggest that April could be very much alive. In the midst of the search for the truth and the search for April is a growing force, something that wants to capture our consciousness and even control our reality. A Beautifully Foolish Endeavor is the bold and brilliant follow-up to an absolutely remarkable thing. It is fast-paced adventure that is also a biting social commentary, asking hard, urgent questions about the way we live, our freedoms, our future, and how we handle the unknown. And that, of course, is our author, Hank Green, one of the Green brothers, one of the architects of YouTube. Okay. All right. Okay. All right. I hated An Absolutely Remarkable Thing. Absolutely hated it. On every level. Structurally, narratively. The author, Hank Green, will swerve a mile out of his way for a stupid slang joke that was funny maybe in 2014. The characters were all just don't forget to be awesome stereotypes, just one after another. And the central organizing gimmick of the book, the Carls, was not all that original. Not that you need originality, but it seemed pointedly derivative. pointedly derivative of a handful of other things that immediately sprang to my mind when I was reading the book, and that I bet sprang to the mind of a lot of other people too. It didn't matter, because an absolutely remarkable thing and a beautifully foolish endeavor are automatic New York Times multi-platinum bestsellers. This is true for the Green brothers. Hank Green could announce that the entire contents of this book was a single word burp. So 200 blank pages. Then on 201, the word burp. And then 200 more blank pages. And the title could be called Burp. And it would still be a New York Times bestseller. And the uncharitable part of my mind, when I was reading the first book of what I guess now is a series, God Help Us All, the uncharitable part of my mind was saying, well, if you know that already, and that Hank Green had that proven to him multiple times by his brother's success as a New York Times best-selling author, if you know that already, how hard are you going to work on your book? How hard are you going to do that? How many times was the first manuscript, or this manuscript, sent around to friends who will be bare-knuckled with it? Not sycophants, not people who are somewhere in the financial orbit of the Green brothers, but readers who will dislike it if it's not good, who will say this is easy, who will say that motivational turn comes out of nowhere, who will say this character is from first to last a stereotype from a movie, not even a book, and I know which movie, and here is which movie it is. Show me a meaningful way in which this character is not simply that character from that movie that you have said many times you like. It was obvious to me, the uncharitable thought in my mind when I read the first book in this series was, you could write anything. And you know you can write anything, and it will still be a massive payday for you. Still be made into a movie down the line. You know all this ahead of time. It's baked in. And the more charitable part of my mind said, well, maybe there was something that could be made of this if it had gone through that kind of a vetting process, which a lot of works of fiction do. In current day, current year, 20th century, 21st century, 2020, a great number of contemporary fiction manuscripts don't go through that vetting process at all. Because people who are now 20, 21, 22, 23, even in their late 20s, have mastered the art, the 21st century art of surrounding themselves in a bubble of affirmation. And living in that bubble. Go to the grocery store in that bubble. Stay online in that bubble. Go to school in that bubble. Go home in that bubble. Write in that bubble. Go to writing colonies at Yaddo and McDowell in that bubble. Don't ever leave that bubble. And that bubble is only going to offer you exactly the amount of so-called criticism that you want to hear. It's not going to offer you anything else. And that anything else is very valuable. And it used to be that that's what you would get at, for instance, a writing workshop, a creative writing program, among your friends, something like that. Because it used to be, before social media, that people didn't have the ability to live entirely in a bubble. They didn't have the ability to do that. Sooner or later, at work or at school or in a relationship, sooner or later, they would be forced to deal with someone who says things that aren't wrong, but that they don't want to hear. Hank Green is a perfect example. In fact, I would argue that he's one of the human causes of the ability of those bubbles to form. He's a perfect example of someone. His first book, anyway, I don't know him. I've never met him. But his first book, to me, was a perfect example of that kind of hothouse flower. The kind of thing that, had it been exposed to the harsh light of actual scrutiny, instead of by sycophants and paid advisors and family members and don't forget to be awesome cult members, if it had been examined with scrutiny, there are things in that first book that could have been saved. That could have been transformed into something that would merit a sequel. They weren't. It never was. And I'd be willing to bet my last Boston cream pie that this thing has not been. Why would it be? Why would Hank Green or John Green go to the bother, or Hank Green or John Green or any of the, for instance, BookTube, quote-unquote, celebrities who have gone on to secure book contracts? Why would any of these people go to the bother of working their way out of their bubble and giving a manuscript to a ravenous pair of jaws? Why would they do that? The only motivation you could possibly have to do that would be to make it the best book it could possibly be. Well, as I mentioned, Hank Green knows for a demonstrable fact that he does not have to make this the best book it can possibly be. He does not. It will be a platinum bestseller no matter what he makes it. Entirely because that platinum bestseller status is not based on the content of the book. It's based on him saying the right things on social media, and more importantly, not saying the wrong things. He and his brother helped to create that world. He cannot possibly claim to be ignorant of it. He must know for a fact that this book can be, I don't know, land waste garbage. Just radioactive land waste garbage. It will still sell 80 billion copies. Whereas, if he says the wrong thing on social media, all of that profit goes away. I don't know. All right. Having said all that, I'm now going to finish my peroration with something that you simply won't believe. It sounds, I admit, flat out unbelievable. I'm going to read this with an open mind. That is my unbelievable statement. I don't blame you if you don't believe me, but I am going to read this with an open mind. Some of you, maybe a handful of you who've known me in real life, will know that I am capable of doing that. I am capable of turning on a dime from a peroration like that and reading a book with an open mind. But what kind of optimism can I possibly have? This is a sequel to a horrible, horrible book that was allowed to be horrible because it was written entirely in a sealed-off, vacuum-sealed hothouse. And the only thing that could have made that a learning experience for Hank Green would have been if it was pilloried and didn't sell. In which case, he might, maybe, have said, well, okay, maybe I shouldn't have written this in a vacuum-sealed hothouse. Maybe I should have exposed this to all kinds of elements, and maybe then it would have been a better book. And he didn't do that. So, and this was written in the same way. It was composed in the same way. It was encouraged. He now has the first book as an encouraging example. So what possible optimism can I have? We shall see. We shall see. So I'm going to read this with an open mind. Probably, I think it's out already, so I'll probably read it right away. I have to check the release dates on all these things. So we have A Beautifully Foolish Endeavor by Hank Green. We have Survival Instincts by Jen Waite. We have The Divine Ms. Marble. I, of course, sounded more enthusiastic about this than anything else in this pile because it's a biography. It's a big, fat biography. And not only is it a biography, but it's a biography involving lots of original research. Talk about a sweet spot for Steve. Then Out of Time by David Klass. A fairly by-the-numbers thriller title. A fairly by-the-numbers thriller premise. After all, you go all the way back to the great-granddaddy of modern thrillers. The Hunt for Red October is about an analyst who breaks ranks. so you're not breaking new ground, but I did like some aspects of it. We shall see. Then Commander-in-Chief in a UK edition that flagrantly does not look like my American editions. I seem to remember Hank Green himself making a video admitting that that kind of thing drives him crazy. He's a perfect example of somebody that I think I would probably love to talk to in person, just face to face. Not that that's ever going to happen, since he is... Oh, I almost got back. I almost started up again. No, I'm not going to do that. I will read it with an open mind. And also Security Empire by Molly Pucci. Serious archival history. So not a bad mail haul at all. A bunch of hardcover books, several of which are brand new. So I'll give me stuff to talk about to you in print. And I also got my wine voucher. I don't think I could drink $100 worth of wine in a whole calendar year. Especially since I can't go anywhere. I can't go anywhere to exercise my wine voucher. I can't have anybody over here to exercise my wine voucher. I think that Mark Richardson and I, maybe with Jason Harrigan's help, could go through $100 worth of wine in a fairly early evening. But how can we meet with a pandemic in place everywhere? Anyway, I'm not going to go off on that either. So I'm going to wrap this up. That was a mail haul I could really appreciate. And I have somebody, or maybe a couple of somebodies at Penguin Random House to thank. I will go and do that. So I'll wrap this up for now, but I will be back. Thank you, Book 2.